Welcome to Flourish, the podcast for faith-driven mompreneurs who are ready to release overwhelm, create sustainable, healthy habits, and build purpose-driven businesses aligned with their faith, family, and vision. I'm Stephanie Book, a transformational mindset, wellness, and business coach. I'm here to equip you with the tools, mindset shifts, and encouragement to help you flourish. If you're ready to grow a thriving life and business while staying aligned with your faith, purpose, and priorities, you're in the right place. You are worthy and capable of living a full and flourishing life. Success isn't just possible, it's meant for you. Let's dive in. Hey there, and welcome to the Flourish Podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I'm so glad that you are here. Welcome to 2026. We're here, a new year, and a fresh start, and I'm thankful for that. I have a confession to make. So I have been very consistent with my podcasts, and I realized last Monday that it was Monday and my podcast wasn't up. Oh my goodness, I could not believe it. With the holidays and traveling, I had prepared. And so I had podcasts set for all of December except for the last one because I thought, I'll come back from vacation and Christmas and I'll be excited to share a podcast with you, maybe share some of my experiences from my vacation. And I had vacation, I came home, we had Christmas, and then I was sick. And I realized on the 29th, I remember waking up on the morning and thinking, I need to make sure that I get the podcast ready for the next week. And then I realized, wait, it is the next week. It's Monday. Oh my goodness. I didn't have my podcast prepared. And so this was the first Monday that I missed not having my podcast up pretty much since I started. I didn't start on a Monday. I shifted to Mondays a little while in, but I have literally been consistent and I missed one day. So I could beat myself up about it, or I could give myself some grace. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. And then on Monday, when I realized later in the day that it was not recorded and it was not ready for it was already past the day that I was supposed to have it up, I realized that 2 weeks of my podcast did not come on my regular podcast app. Now they posted on my YouTube, but I was busy. I was on a cruise ship and then Christmas and then I was sick and I didn't really pay that much attention to things behind the scenes and then realized that 2 of the podcasts that I did have prepared didn't even post on my Spotify and on the Apple Podcasts and all those places that you might be listening if you're a listener and not a watcher. And so I quickly just posted both of those on. And so really, it's been quite a few weeks where I've had a specific podcast landing at the right time. But those other ones were ready to go. They were recorded. The emails went out. They just were not scheduled or something happened because I really think that I went through and scheduled them on my podcast app. But regardless of what happened, whether I did or didn't do that, they didn't post on time. So I'm grateful that today the podcast is going up on a normal time, normal basis, and you're back here with me. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that because this would have been something probably that would have really derailed me at one point, missing that podcast. Like I said, I decided to give myself some grace and move on. And I think it's good because I'm not perfect and I never say that I was perfect, and I definitely don't want to portray that I'm perfect. I try to be consistent, and I think it's important to show up every week, and I love being able to show up for you every week and having a new podcast and stepping into the new exciting things that I want to share with you every week. But sometimes life gets in the way. Sometimes we forget. Sometimes we make decisions that maybe don't follow through the best way. Maybe things just don't always go as planned, and not everything always happens perfectly, but it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It doesn't mean that I therefore am all 132 episodes that I have done already don't mean anything because I missed one. I think it's episode 133. I think that's today's episode. I'm not sure. I have to look back. But so I have done 131 episodes or 130 episodes it might be 134. I don't know. You'll know when you start the podcast, you'll know what number this is. But regardless, I've done pretty much 130-ish episodes on track, hitting every week on time. And so that one podcast that I missed last week is not the end of the world. And it doesn't mean I'm a failure. It just means that I made a mistake and I didn't prepare ahead of time. And so as I'm coming into this year, we're already in the beginning of the year, and I feel like I'm behind. I don't know about you, but you step in and we think that January 1st starts and everything needs to be figured out. Everything needs to be planned out. Everything needs to be perfect. And it doesn't always work out that way. And that's okay. There's nothing magic about January 1st. You can start your goals. You can start your plans. All those different things don't have to take place beforehand. Now, it's nice when you walk into the year and everything is ready to go. I've been talking about goals on the podcast for a while, but I was so focused on all the different things that I needed to do before our vacation that I didn't really take the time to really focus on what I wanted to create next. And so sometimes that just happens. So I am right there with you. Sometimes we need a little bit of time to catch up. Sometimes we need to give ourselves some grace and recognize the little steps that we took are enough, and that's okay. And we can take those and move on to the next thing. So I thought today I'm going to jump in. I'm going to share a few things on my heart, a few things that I've thought about over the last couple of weeks, and we'll jump into a new year and everything should be ready to go and planned for the rest of the year, or at least for the first quarter. I'm going to give myself some grace and say, okay, let's plan out the first quarter and then we'll go from there. One of the things I do want to do as we approach this next year is bring in more guest episodes. I have had some good response to those episodes. It's really fun to have somebody else on. You get to hear somebody else's voice and some of the wisdom that they are sharing with you. So my goal is to do my best to have at least one guest episode a month, but I know that I have typically always been drawn to those that are just solo podcasts. So I really like that style of podcast. So I'm going to try to still keep, for the most part, my voice, but sometimes I will bring in a guest episode. My hope is one a month. Maybe sometimes we'll have two, and maybe there will be none in some. So it's not going to be perfect, but again, I am going to do my best to bring you new things every single week and things that are on my heart, things that way that I think God is leading me to share and talk with you. And so I'm excited about all that will come. And I have a few ideas of some guests already, and I know more of those will come ahead of time. So as I am in this first week of January, and really today, the Monday, January 5th, if you're listening to this at that point when it drops, then you know, like, this is the first week that things are kind of back to normal-ish, right? But a lot of people are back to work, kids are back to school. I know my husband has been off most of this time, and so we were off on vacation, and then he worked one day, and then he was off for Christmas, and then through the new year until today, the Monday, he will go back to work. So this is actually being recorded the day before on Sunday, but yeah, so tomorrow I'm looking forward to, or today as you're listening, is the day of more routine and stepping into just that rhythm again. Because I don't know about you, I do talk a lot about rhythms and systems and structure, not to be rigid, but just that how I feel so much better when those habits are in place, when I have that specific rhythm, when I'm going to bed at the right time and waking up at a good time, I have my Bible time, all those different things that I have in place, those routines and systems that help me feel more free, more grounded. And so I'm excited to be able to jump back into that. But I have loved all of the time that we've had off, the time we've had together as a family. My husband and I have been able to go to a couple of movies, and we had my daughter and her boyfriend over to play games one day. And of course, we got to visit my son on the cruise for that week. And so we've had a lot of great and fun adventures that I would not take away at all. But I'm looking forward to a little bit of more habits and structures. And one of those areas that I'm going to step in is in my health journey, and I'm excited. I asked a friend who's a trainer to kind of help me through a little bit. So we just met actually a little bit ago about some of my workouts that I'm going to do, and I talked a little bit about using my nutrition plan and how I can bring that in to support the goals that I have. And so I'm excited about that too. It's fun to have exciting things happen. It's exciting to step into new goals, and sometimes they can be scary, and sometimes you can feel a little defeated, and that's okay, because I'm learning as we take little baby steps towards those things we want to create that is progress. I used to put such a high expectation on myself that everything, if I didn't, either I did it or I would fail at it. And that is just not the truth. Anytime I'm taking a step forward towards something, creating something, doing something new, taking one little step forward, that is a way of progress. That is something that's moving me towards what I want to create. And it's not a pass or fail. It makes me think of the silly movie Talladega Nights, either first or you're last. No, that's not true. So it's so silly. There's second place, there's third place, right, in a race. But there's if you're not first, you still are making progress. If you've made any step towards something that you want to create, that is progress. You are not in last place. You are right exactly where you need to be at the time. And so I'm giving myself some grace that I didn't show up perfectly with the podcast, and giving myself some grace that the goals and the schedule isn't all figured out quite yet. But I know that over this next week, I'll have a little bit more time, I'll have more structure, and things are going to fall into place even more as I focus on those things. And I do one little habit at a time to meet those goals and meet those expectations, but give myself healthy expectations as I reach for those things. And so I want to encourage you as well. Are you giving yourself some grace? Have you made some decisions over the last couple of weeks that you are looking back? You look back and be like, man, I wish I would have made a different decision. It's okay. That was the past. They talk about how you don't drive forward looking at your rearview mirror all the time, right? You're going to crash. So we don't want to take too much time reflecting back or looking back as we're trying to move forward. We want to head straight forward. And so we can use that. I've talked a lot about reflection, so it's okay to look back. And if you haven't done that yet, we talked about that earlier in the podcast, in November, we were talking about reflecting back at what worked, what didn't work, not to condemn ourselves or put ourselves down, but just for information. So there are times that we want to look back at what took place so we can learn from that, use those stepping stones, but we're not going to drive forward looking back at those. And so keep that in mind. So I could dwell on the fact that I didn't get every single podcast on Monday drop because I missed that last one. Or I can look at, oh my goodness, I did 130 plus episodes well without missing. And I just get to move forward into this next year and the new goals and the exciting things I want to bring forward. And so I'm going to do that with my spiritual health, with my mindset health, with my physical health, and look at the ways that I get to step into just that next best thing for me and the little baby steps that I can take along the way to move me forward. And so I want to encourage you to do the same. Don't worry about what choices you made in the last month. Look at what choice you're going to make today to move you one step forward. We use that information, and it's just information. It doesn't define us. It doesn't say we're a failure. We get to step in and make those decisions to move toward the next thing that we want to create and celebrate those wins along the way. When you are in a journey, when you're making one decision, maybe you want to really change what your health looks like. Taking one step and having an extra glass of water that you didn't have yesterday, that is progress. Sometimes we try to put way too high expectations on ourselves when those little baby steps can make a difference. Because if you're having that extra glass of water and you choose to do it the next day and then the next day, eventually that becomes a habit. And then you can add in another layer to that. Maybe okay, I'm going to have another glass of water. I'm going to take away a glass of soda for the day. And you can do that. There's so many different little baby steps we can make toward those goals. And sometimes we jump in and sometimes we do bigger goals, but we want to make sure that they're in the parameters of things that we actually can do so that the expectations aren't so high that we set ourselves up for failure. I think a lot of times when we do resolutions, that's what happens. People, they list out all the different things that they want to accomplish for the year and they want to make big changes in all these different areas. And they're great, exciting, and they're all good goals. There's nothing wrong with the goals that you're making, except that they're usually unreachable. And usually there's a day or two goes by and you forget to do something, and then boom, you've messed up every single goal that you had set for yourself, and you're like, oh, forget it, I'll just start on Monday, right? We go in that perpetual starting over. And I don't want you to be in that space. I want you to recognize that those little tiny baby steps you move toward, that's what we want to focus on. You can have the big goal in mind, but then we step back, and I've talked about this so many times on the podcast, then we can kind of go backwards and look at what the step previously to that and to that and to that, so you can come to that little baby step that you can take today, the one little millimeter of movement you can make today to move you towards that big goal that will come eventually as you make those little decisions each day to move toward them. And so I'm telling you this, but I'm also reminding myself as well. So I actually recorded this entire podcast before and the sound didn't work. And so I thought, well, I could sit in there and be frustrated. I mean, I was frustrated for a few minutes, but I thought, well, maybe what I was sharing was not exactly what I was supposed to be sharing. So far, I've shared a lot of the same things with you today, but maybe it's been a little bit different and maybe a little bit different of a posture, because I think I was in a negative space when I was doing the first podcast, because I was still dealing with some negativity that I was feeling earlier in the day. And some days we wake up and we're ready to go. We feel great. We're feeling awesome. We're ready to take on the day. And then other days we wake up and that negative mindset starts at us right away. Those negative lies that we will speak over ourselves will speak louder than what God's voice is. And that's kind of the space I was this morning. I just was not in a good headspace for some reason. I woke up, and I think knowing that tomorrow is going to, or the day that I'm recording this would be tomorrow. Today, as you're listening, was going to be a place for me to make a little bit of changes in some of my health decisions and my exercise, knowing that was there, and sitting a little bit of disappointment on myself of where I was currently after some choices I made. And I was just making one decision after another based on that past that I talked about, rather than looking forward to what I want to create and using that information as information and moving forward. And so it took me a little bit of work to change the mindset that I was in, to shift the perspective of what I was looking at. And I was able to, I went to church, and I was reluctant. I didn't want to go to church this morning. Why? I don't know. It just was like, I don't want to do that. I wanted to sit and I wanted to relax, because I knew this was the last normal day of not normal day, but like vacation type day. And I think I just wanted to be able to sit and relax, and I wanted to plan ahead, and I had all these different goals, but instead I had to get ready for church. And so I was kind of grouchy about it, not because I don't like church, but because I had other things I wanted to do. And then I just was in a really negative space, and I got there, and I just was not I was not honoring God in my attitude, and I was just frustrated, I'll be honest. And so during the beginning part of the sermon, or the service, I think it was, I messaged a couple friends and said, hey, would you pray for me? Because I knew that the feelings I was having in my heart were not my own. They were negative things. All the things that I could think of negatively were the words that were speaking in my mind and my heart. And I thought, no, this isn't right. And so I shifted my mind and I said, no, this is not, the lies that I'm hearing in my mind are not the ones that I want to listen to. And I want to refocus on the Lord. And I asked for those for prayer from a couple friends. And then, I was able to dive into his word and be able to listen to the sermon and be able to shift my perspective. And so by the time I left, I was in a better mood, but I also knew that I still needed to continue to surrender those negative thoughts, those worries about the different things that were on my mind, and be able to give those back to God. And so I just wanted to be real and be like, sometimes I show up here and I might say, well, I'm doing all these things, and maybe you're expecting me to always have everything figured out, and that's not true. I'm not perfect, far from it. And there are days that I have negative attitude, and there's days where I'm not seeking the Lord first. I invited him into my day today, but then I quickly let the negative thoughts jump in my heart, in my mind, and try to overpower the things that God wanted to do in and through me. And so we all get to those spaces, but it's like those choices that we get to make in those moments that can make the difference. We can stop, we can surrender it back to the Lord and just say, I messed up. Please forgive me. I don't want to have these thoughts, whatever these are. Remove these negative thoughts or comparison or whatever it is that's in our heart, and ask the Lord to invite him back in and surrender those things to him and ask him to lead. And so sometimes it takes a lot of effort to do that, because when you're really negative or you're stuck in yourself, then sometimes it's hard to remove yourself on being stuck on yourself. But I promise you, the more that you do this, the more that you learn how to control your mind and how to the thoughts that you're having, and recognize the things that are true and recognize the things that are not true, and be able to surrender them to the Lord, then you are able to walk through it a little bit easier. And so why I woke up that way, I don't know. Why I was feeling so discouraged? Well, there's probably some things that are there. I was discouraged because I knew that because of the decisions I made over the last couple of weeks. Like my weight isn't where I wanted it to be. Not the weight, but just my health overall. Like I know that I'm not my best health that I could be, and I feel better when I'm doing that. Not to shame myself, but because I know I feel better when I feel better, right? When I'm making those decisions that are healthier for me. I like it when I put on my pants and they don't feel tight. And today they felt tight, and that bothered me. Not because of the outward image, but because I knew that I wasn't honoring my body the way that I could. And so I was beating myself up. But instead of looking at that as, okay, information of what I did before and where I'm at today, I was instead being in that victim mode. And so it takes a bit sometimes to remove ourselves from being the victim and into learning how to reframe those thoughts and look at this as facts, as this is the information that I have, and then what are the steps I can make next to be able to change the way that I'm seeing things and the way that I see myself. So I just wanted to be real because I felt like sometimes I probably show up and saying like I have all this everything figured out, and I don't. There's days like this where I'm human, and my positive attitude wasn't here this morning. And I'm sure my husband probably attests to that too, that there are days where she's not so happy or peppy, or she's kind of negative some days. We all are like that. But it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It doesn't mean that I can't teach you different things about what I'm learning, because I'm on a journey too. And so if anything, I hope this just encourages you that you're not alone if you've had those feelings, but just don't sit in them. Take responsibility for the choices that you're making. Take responsibility for the thoughts that are there, and then shift them and measure them up to what the Lord is saying about you, and recognize that you are loved regardless of those decisions that you're making, and that He will, as you surrender to Him, He will guide you through it. He will walk you through it, and that you don't have to stay there. So I don't know. I'm kind of a little bit all over the place today, but I didn't write anything down because I just wanted to make sure that I was staying consistent for this podcast today, that I showed up in your inbox with a message. And I wanted to share a little bit what was on my heart today, because it's been a long week. It's been a long month, I should say, since I recorded my last podcast. I recorded them and made sure that everything was ready for when I went on my vacation. And there was a lot of pressure I put on myself to do all the things that I wanted to do. And then I think that when I came to the end of the month and I was done with vacation and then I wasn't feeling well, I realized that, first of all, how helpful it was to have everything ready to go, so that it could have been ready. If I would have done one more week, then it would have been shown up for you. But I also can recognize that it's okay that I made a mistake, that I forgot to do a podcast, that I didn't get it up there in time. It doesn't make me a failure. It just makes me human. It makes me be part of the journey. And so, but I have goals, and I have consistency is important to me, and showing up authentically is important to me. So I will do my best to show up regularly for you. And the things that I do share from my heart, I do hope that they help you, they encourage you, and they help point you back toward God who created you, who made you, and who you find your value in. Thank goodness I don't find the value in what I do, but I find my value in with what God says and who he says I am. And so, friends, I hope that this podcast is an encouragement to you. Though I didn't give a lot of scripture or a lot of steps of what you can or cannot do, I hope that it gives you just some space to breathe, to give yourself some grace, and to be able to stop back and just maybe reset, reframe for a minute, and then look on what little steps you can take today to move you towards the things that you want to create. That it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. January 1st doesn't mean everything has to have figured out. It just gives you that opportunities to be able to step in and say, okay, this is the facts. These are the things that I know. This may or may not have been the best decisions that I made over such and such time, but what can I do with that information, and how can I move forward? What's the next best step that I can take? And then that's all that you're asked to do. So friends, I hope this was encouraging to you. I hope that if it was just me rambling and you found it frustrating, well, that's okay. Then maybe this wasn't for you. And if it was encouraging to you, let me know. I'd love to know if there was something that you heard today that really spoke to you, or just helped you realize that you're normal, that we all have spaces where things don't go the way that we hoped or we planned, but it doesn't mean that we're failures. It just means that maybe something we didn't work out right, or we maybe made a mistake. Like, I did not record the podcast and have it ready for you last week, but it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. I did all these other episodes that I was able to show up for and do on time. And so that doesn't mean I'm a failure. It just means I made a mistake. I let too much time go. I wasn't as prepared as I had maybe hoped to be able to show that up for you. So anyways, I hope that's encouraging. But friends, if there's anything that you would like for me to share on the podcast, if you really do like those interview podcasts when I'm having guests on, let me know. I'd love to know. If you have specific topics that you want me to share about, if you want me to be a little more in depth in the Bible, if you want me to do a little bit more mindset, or if you want me to do a little more health, this is what I'm here. I show up for you, and I want to be able to give you things that are going to help you move forward. I try to share the things that I'm learning along the way and pass it on to you, and hope that the little bit of things that I might learn, the new little skills or little habits or the routines that I set for myself, might be something that can help you or someone that you know as they walk their life and their journey. So friends, thank you so much for listening. I look forward to another wonderful year with you. And just remember that you are worthy and capable of living a full and flourishing life. Success isn't just possible, it's meant for you. Take care. Thank you for joining me on Flourish. I hope today's episode left you feeling inspired and equipped to take your next step with confidence. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who needs this encouragement. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at steph.book and join our Facebook community of faith-driven women who are ready to flourish. Make sure to check out the show notes for all the ways we can connect and continue this journey of growth together. My friends, remember, you are worthy and capable of living a full and flourishing life. Success isn't just possible, it's meant for you. Take care.